Last night, an absolute tragedy occurred where a commercial airliner heading from Kansas to Washington, D.C. collided with a military helicopter and then fell into the Potomac River. There were 60 people plus 4 crew members on board the commercial flight, and there was an additional 3 people on the military aircraft. At the time of recording, there have been 27 bodies recovered during the rescue operation, and at this time, it is presumed that nobody survived. Now, this is an absolute tragedy, and my heart goes out to every single family that is involved here. I just cannot imagine what they must be going through, and I think it's probably a little too early to start blaming people or pointing fingers because we just do not have enough information at this time. There's a lot of people online trying to claim that this is the Trump administration's fault because many of his policies or executive directives have been pretty hostile to our federal workforce, which includes aviation safety. But time will tell as the investigation goes on what exactly went down here. So instead of talking about what went wrong, who's to blame, I want to talk about how the Trump administration has responded to this absolute tragedy. Because I think most Americans would expect that their government could be a strong hand of leadership in times of crisis like this. I know I want that from my government, and I would expect that most Americans would want that too. But if we know anything about the Trump administration, we know this is not something that we can expect. Instead of comforting those involved, instead of opening investigations and trying to get to the bottom of it, Donald Trump just goes out there in the first press briefing addressing this issue and just starts spreading a whole bunch of bullcrap. Okay, here he is just admitting that we don't know what happened, but I'm going to assert my opinions anyway.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas.
What the hell is wrong with this man? There are bodies being recovered from the Potomac River. And instead of saying we don't know what happened, we have opened an investigation, we are waiting for new information, Donald Trump just comes out and just starts the chaos. And we're going to get into some of the claims that he actually made here, but what is this behavior? The president should be more responsible about these types of things. We have families in mourning right now, and they click on the TV, and this is the president that they see. Here he is blaming the Biden administration for just lowering FAA standards. Of course, always pointing the finger.
They have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people. Were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first.
This man is a petulant child. Here he is saying that, well, during my first administration, I upped the standards. And then when Biden came in, he rolled them all back. He's not going to provide any evidence of this because it did not happen. But this is what we have come to expect from Donald Trump. All he knows how to do is point the finger. All he knows how to do is place blame on other people. Now, I'm not even expecting him to come out and accept the blame for what went down here, but for him to just start going on a rampage and blaming this person and that administration and those groups of people is an absolute disgrace. As I said, people are mourning right now, and you are holding a press conference and going on the attack. What is wrong with you? Here he is going after Pete Buttigieg in pretty horrific fashion, I might add, because Donald Trump just cannot help himself.
Then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason, the FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Again, just going on the attack. This is all he knows how to do. But unfortunately for Donald Trump, this is your FAA. This is your administration. You are in charge now, and the buck stops with you. So at the very least, you could come out and say, hey, we don't know what happened here. This is an absolute tragedy. My heart goes out to the families, and we have opened an investigation. We have made resources available to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. That is what a responsible and compassionate president would do. That's the type of thing that we could expect from Joe Biden if he were president. That is the same thing that we would expect from Kamala Harris if she had won the 2024 election. But instead, we have a man baby who all he knows how to do is go on the attack. He never shows any empathy. He never shows any compassion. And when he does have words that might resemble those things, they are always followed up with attacks that look like this. This man is an absolute disgrace, and he is a pathetic excuse for the President of the United States. He is a disgrace to this office. Here, Donald Trump is asserting that he just knows how the helicopters work better than the pilots did.
But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously.
What is this nonsense? Oh, I have a helicopter. I know how they work. He should have been able to stop. He should have been able to turn. He obviously made the wrong turn. Why does he do this? Again, people are still being recovered from the Potomac River, and you are spinning up falsities, false narratives, conspiracies about what went down when we do not have the information to come to any conclusions. It is just irresponsible. It is just disgraceful for a president of the United States to do stuff like this. And then it gets a bit more pernicious because, of course, it wouldn't be a conservative attack unless, of course, they could blame DEI. Here he is asking about whether DEI played a role in this very tragic accident.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else.
It just could have been. We don't really know. We don't have any evidence to show you that would prove that somehow DEI was involved in this tragedy. But of course, Trump always has to create a boogeyman. Trump always has to be on the attack. And then he goes on to explain a little bit further that, of course, common sense would tell you that diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, of course, are to blame.
Mr. President, you have today blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that you weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. You then said perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
I understand that. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
It's common sense, guys. DEI must have been involved because that's the pet item of the GOP. When was the last time there was some sort of tragedy or some sort of crisis where they were not blaming diversity, equity, and inclusion? These people are pathetic. This press briefing was pathetic, and it was an embarrassment to the United States of America. Donald Trump got up there and rambled. He's all out of it. He's an old man. His stream of consciousness is just all over the place. He brings up DEI, tries to blame the pilot, then it's other things. It was an absolute mess. And it's my hope that the American people start to notice that this man does not know how to lead. And when are we going to get fed up with the President of the United States acting like such a fool in times of tragedy? He should be out there providing comfort to the families who just lost their loved ones. But instead, he's out there going on the attack, placing the blame on other people. Because as we know, Donald Trump will never, ever take accountability for anything bad that happens under his watch. And I'm not even blaming Donald Trump for what went down here. We just do not have enough information to know who is at fault here. So I'm not even making the claim that Donald Trump is to blame. But it is just it's just irresponsible for a president to come out here and perform the way that Donald Trump performed. And I think as Americans, we should expect better from all of our elected officials. Donald Trump is not the only one making the rounds on media trying to blame DEI for this accident. It is an absolute disgrace. These Republicans are morally bankrupt. They are terrible human beings, and they are always looking for a way to score one more political point, even as bodies are being dragged out of the Potomac River. I will leave it there for now. As I said, my heart goes out to every single family that was involved in this very horrific tragedy. I cannot imagine what you must be going through, and my thoughts are with you. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I very much appreciate that. We have to build something here on the left that can adequately push back on all of these false narratives and blame games that Republicans like to play. So if you do like the work I do here, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see how Donald Trump is waging an all-out war on science, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.